Buildings in Clash Royale are some of the most impactful cards in the game. While some provide much necessary defense, others are great win conditions on their own. Today, we'll break down every building in Clash Royale, explain how they work, and finally reveal the best deck for each building. So, let's begin. Cannon. Cannon is one of the most basic yet effective defensive buildings in the game. At just 3 Elixir, it provides a solid way to stop ground-based win conditions like Hog Rider and Giant. It has a fast attack speed and decent damage per second, but Cannon has one major weakness. It doesn't target air units. That means you can't really use it to defend against air troops like Balloon or Lava Hound. Also, because of its low hit points, it's vulnerable to spells like Fireball and Earthquake. Cannon shines in fast cycle decks because of its low cost. Try to pair the Cannon with cards like Ice Spirit and Skeletons. These cards can delay enemy troops from reaching your cannon. In the meantime, the cannon can finish them off. Consider these two scenarios. Here you see that the cannon plus skeletons were much more effective in defending against a charging prince than a solo cannon. The same strategy can also be used against cards like P.E.K.K.A. or Dark Prince. One great play you can pull off is to use an Ice Spirit to push a Hog Rider towards your cannon placed on the opposite side. This way, you can cause your opponent to miss the Earthquake on your cannon while you defend their push effectively. The best cannon deck in Clash Royale is this Royal Hog's Earthquake cycle, Bomb Tower. Bomb Tower is a defensive powerhouse against ground swarms. It throws bombs that deal area damage, making it perfect against decks that rely on stacking troops like Royal Hogs, Elite Barbarians, or Goblin Gang. Its explosion on death also adds extra value, ensuring that even if it gets destroyed, it can still get some damage on enemy troops. Bomb Tower has two issues. First of all, it can't target air troops, so it struggles against Lava Hound and Balloon pushers. Secondly, it attacks very slowly, which reduces its overall damage and effectiveness in certain situations. Still, it's a reliable defense because it has great health for a 4 Elixir building, which makes it a better choice against big spells as compared to the Cannon or Tesla. Bomb Tower is a key part of miner control decks, where it provides strong defense while allowing the miner to chip away at towers. Now, here is one really important thing you need to know about the Bomb Tower. It's a trick that very few players actually utilize. You see, since the Bomb Tower leaves a bomb behind when it dies, you can't place anything on those tiles while the bomb waits to explode. This is an interesting detail because your opponent can actually take advantage of that. If you have an existing Bomb Tower that's about to die, your opponent can place a win condition like Hog Rider on the bridge right when your Bomb Tower explodes. This way, you can't drop your second Bomb Tower at the optimal placement. The best Bomb Tower deck in Clash Royale is this classic Miner Balloon cycle. It's a really great deck with high outplay potential if you want to try. Tesla. Tesla is unique because it stays underground when not attacking, making it temporarily immune to spells like Fireball or Poison. This gives it an advantage over buildings like Cannon that can be easily damaged by spells. Tesla also attacks both air and ground, making it one of the best counters to Balloon and Lava Hound decks. One key thing to note about the Tesla is it's the only building card that requires a 2x2 tile space. Now, what this means is that it can be a bit hard to place correctly, but it's even harder for your opponent to drop their spells on it correctly. A lot of times, players tend to miss their Earthquake or Fireballs on the Tesla, so a smart thing you can do is to keep switching up your Tesla placements. Its downside is that it lacks the HP of other defensive buildings like Inferno Tower or Bomb Tower. While it can handle swarms and medium health units, it struggles against high damage spells like Lightning. Also, troops like Royal Giant can easily take down a solo Tesla. Here's what you should do instead. You see, a Tesla alone isn't enough to defend a tank. You always need a high damage dealing troop to support your defense. Tesla is a key part of Xbow cycle decks, as it provides strong defense while allowing you to set up an offensive Xbow safely. The best Tesla deck is this Xbow Tesla cycle deck. Since Tesla is a 2x2 building, it's the perfect building to defend your Xbow. Inferno Tower. Inferno Tower is a tank destroyer. It builds up damage over time, meaning it absolutely melts high HP units like Golem, Electro Giant, and Lava Hound. Unlike Cannon or Tesla, which provide steady DPS, Inferno Tower excels in stopping big pushes before they can reach your tower, or even itself. But it's not perfect. Any reset card like Zap, Electro Spirit, Electro Wizard can completely ruin its effectiveness. A simple Zap can reset its damage, forcing it to restart from scratch. Additionally, it costs 5 Elixir, making it a bigger commitment compared to cheaper alternatives like Tesla or Cannon. Despite its weaknesses, Inferno Tower is a crucial part of log-bait decks where it forces opponents to use their Zap on defense instead of against the Goblin Barrel or Goblin Gang. It's also a strong pick in mid-ladder where Mega Knight and Golem decks dominate. The best Inferno Tower deck is definitely classic Logbait. It forces opponents to waste their reset spells, making the Goblin Barrel harder to counter. Mortar. Mortar is a siege building that locks onto enemy towers from long range. Unlike most buildings, it's an offensive tool, designed to deal direct damage rather than just playing defense. It's a 4 Elixir win condition, which is seriously underrated in my opinion. Mortar's biggest strength is its ability to apply constant pressure. If your opponent doesn't have a good counter, it can get multiple hits on their tower, forcing them to play defensively. However, it struggles against tanks and buildings, which can absorb its shots and prevent it from hitting the tower. Also, it has a hard time against cycle decks since they can easily distract the Mortar shots with cards like Ice Spirit or Skeletons. The unique thing about Mortar is that it has a blind spot. If enemy troops get too close to it, the Mortar won't be able to hit them. You can use this to your advantage by pulling enemy tanks close to it, thus allowing your Mortar to connect to the tower. Now, there are multiple ways to use the Mortar. First, you can use it normally on offense by placing it near the bridge. This cuts off half the sight range of the Mortar, making it easier for it to connect to the tower. Always be ready to defend your Mortar against enemy troops. Secondly, you can place it in the middle to defend against enemy pushes. And lastly, you can place it near the center of the river. This position is a high-risk, high-reward play. By placing your Mortar like this, not only can you defend against an incoming troop like Giant or Hog Rider, but you also apply the threat to attack the enemy's tower. The downsides to this position are that, first, your opponent can use this position to activate their own King Tower, and secondly, because of this position, the entire sight range of the Mortar is activated. This makes it harder for it to connect on the tower, as your opponent can literally place troops anywhere to distract it. The best Mortar deck is this Hog Rider deck, which uses the Mortar to apply extra pressure with 2 win conditions. Xbow. Xbow is one of the most skillful win conditions in Clash Royale. It's a siege building that locks onto enemy towers and rapidly fires arrows at them. However, because it has a long deploy time, it requires careful placement and support to be effective. The biggest strength of Xbow is its ability to win games through pure control. If you can set up an Xbow and defend it properly, you can chip away at the opponent's tower while maintaining a strong defense, but it has clear weaknesses. Heavy tanks like Golem and Giant can absorb its shots, and spells like Lightning or Rocket can destroy it instantly. Therefore, your job is to outcycle your opponent's counters to the Xbow. Even if you're able to get a momentary lock, it should be enough because the Xbow can deal insane damage in a very short amount of time. Xbow is most commonly played in Xbow Cycle and Icebow decks. These decks focus on quickly cycling back to another Xbow while defending the cheap cards. It's paired the best with Tesla, as we talked earlier. Knight, Archers, and Ice Wizard are solid for supporting the Xbow too. If your opponent is running a spell like Fireball or Poison, make sure to space out your troops and not to overcommit defending your Xbow. Instead, cycle back to another Xbow before the opponent gets back to their spells. The best Xbow deck is this classic 3.0 Xbow Cycle deck, which has been around for years and still remains reliable. Goblin Drill. Goblin Drill is a unique building because, unlike most buildings that stay in one spot, this one can spawn directly on your opponent's side of the arena. It costs 4 Elixir and continuously spawns goblins for a few seconds. This makes it one of the only buildings that acts as a win condition rather than a defensive structure. The goblins spawned by the drill can deal massive chip damage if ignored, Similar to a Goblin barrel, the drill can be placed in different locations to force your opponent to react. Placing it in the front is a common strategy. Most of your opponents will expect that, so they will play a troop in the front as soon as you play the drill. But you can outsmart your opponent by placing the drill at the back instead. You see, by placing the drill at the back, the opponent's troops walked away before your drill reached the tower. Defensively, Goblin Drill can be used as a mini distraction since it has decent health and spawns goblins when destroyed. This makes it a decent counter to elite barbarians or prince, though it's not the most reliable defensive building. Goblin Drill is great against slow cycle decks because it forces your opponent to constantly spend elixir to defend against the goblins. The best Goblin Drill deck is this one, which is currently played a lot on top ladder. Goblin Cage. Goblin Cage is a unique defensive building. When destroyed, it spawns a Goblin Brawler, which deals massive damage and can counter-push effectively. Unlike most buildings, which are purely defensive, Goblin Cage offers both defense and offense in a single card. Its biggest advantage is its versatility. It stops win conditions like Hog Rider, Battle Ram, and Ram Rider, while also creating a counter-push opportunity. However, it struggles against air units and is not that reliable against Royal Hogs or Balloon. Goblin Cage works best in graveyard and beatdown decks, where you can build big pushes on offense, while the Goblin Cage blocks the other lane completely by itself. The best Goblin Cage deck is this Splash Yard deck, which can basically beat anything if played right. Tombstone. Tombstone is the cheapest building alongside Cannon, costing only 3 elixir. But don't let its low cost fool you. It can be one of the most annoying defensive buildings to deal with. Unlike other buildings that deal direct damage, the Tombstone acts as a distraction. It constantly spawns skeletons until it's destroyed, and when it does go down, it spawns even more skeletons, making it a nightmare for single target units like the Prince or Mini P.E.K.K.A. So what is it good at? Tombstone is amazing at slowing down ground-based pushes. It's one of the best counters to Hog Rider, as the skeletons can fully stop it if placed correctly. It also shuts down elite barbarians, forcing them to waste time cutting through multiple targets instead of hitting your tower. Against heavy tanks like Giant or Golem, the skeletons help chip away at their health while distracting support troops. But here's the downside. It does nothing against air units. If your opponent is running Lava Hound or Balloon, your Tombstone is basically useless. It also struggles against splash damage cards like Poison, Baby Dragon, or Magic Archer, as these cards clear out the skeletons before they can be effective. Also, it's vulnerable to the log because of its low hit points. Tombstone is best used with beatdown decks since they rely on minimum defense. It carries the defense of decks like Lava Hound and Golem single-handedly. But the best Tombstone deck is actually Graveyard, as its synergy with Ice Wizard and Tornado is literally an unbreakable defense. Goblin Hut. Goblin Hut is a 5 elixir spawner building that continuously produces 3 spear goblins every 11 seconds. They provide constant chip damage and can be incredibly annoying for opponents who lack a good way to clear them effectively. Because it slowly builds up a swarm of troops, it's particularly strong in decks that rely on slow, steady pressure rather than instant value. However, Goblin Hut isn't perfect. It's weak against Poison and Earthquake, which can take it out while also damaging your tower. Additionally, it struggles to provide strong defensive value. The reason is that the spear goblins are easily wiped out by small spells. It's more of an offensive tool designed to chip away at opponents over time. Goblin Hut works best in swarm decks, where it's combined with other swarm cards like Skeleton Barrel. These decks overwhelm opponents by constantly building up a swarm of troops that never stop coming. The best Goblin Hut deck is this Giant Skeleton clone deck. It's extremely annoying, and you can have a fun time playing this. Furnace. Furnace is another spawner building, but instead of goblins, it spawns fire spirits. They deal splash damage, making Furnace particularly effective against swarms and cheap cycle decks. Every few seconds, a fire spirit spawns and jumps towards the nearest target, dealing significant chip damage. One of Furnace's biggest strengths is its ability to control the bridge. It forces your opponent to respond to every fire spirit that spawns, which can slowly wear them down over time. However, like Goblin Hut, it struggles against poison and earthquake. Furnace is particularly strong in Royal Giant decks, where it applies constant pressure alongside your Royal Giant. Therefore, the best Furnace deck is none other than this classic Royal Giant cycle deck, Barbarian Hut. Barbarian Hut is the most expensive building in the game, costing a whopping 6 elixir. It spawns barbarians over time that can provide both defense and counter push potential. Because of its high cost, Barbarian Hut is risky to play. If your opponent has an earthquake or poison, they can severely reduce its value. However, with the right counters, it can be incredibly effective. It shines in a select few decks like Graveyard or Elixir Golem, where hordes of barbarians are used to overwhelm the opponent. The biggest weakness of Barbarian Hut is its slow generation speed. It spawns 3 barbarians every 15 seconds, therefore it struggles against fast cycle decks, which can outpace it before it builds up enough troops. However, it's still quite effective in countering tanks by itself. The best Barbarian Hut deck is this Elixir Golem deck, which will definitely be a nightmare for your opponent. Elixir Collector. Unlike every other building, Elixir Collector doesn't attack. Instead, it generates elixir over time, making it a crucial card for beatdown decks that rely on massive pushes. If left alone, it provides a huge advantage, allowing players to overwhelm opponents with a massive elixir lead. But it comes with a risk. If your opponent has a rocket, poison, or earthquake, they can instantly damage both your collector and your tower, negating its value. Elixir Collector is a staple in 3 Musketeers decks, but the best deck for Elixir Collector is this Pump Bow deck, which can give you infinite elixir to play countless Xbows. But anyways, YouTube thinks you'll like this video. Let's see if they're right.